Good evening. I thought I would talk to you today about and show you my collection of sewing machines. If you had a garage full of cars, it'd be quite fun to share them all and drive them all and experience them all. Well, the same goes with sewing machines. People who use their sewing machines a lot tend to have quite a few of them. Because we can nowadays. They were once so expensive this wasn't really possible. But what's interesting now is because we can afford more of them, we do. So why? If I had a whole bunch of them, why would I have a whole bunch of them? And the reason is because there is no perfect sewing machine. Now I'm going to tell you a bit about my preferences of sewing machines, but they are because of what I sew and how I sew. So I spend generally a few hours each night sewing. And what I sew is generally shirts or trousers, and sometimes I make dresses, but I also do linens, and occasionally I make something more heavy duty. I do quite a bit of machine embroidery and a few other things. So based on that, I have a fabulous collection of machines. I am really pleased. Some of them took me years to get, and in reality I upgraded many of them, and some of them I got once and that was it. So this is my order based on what I like to sew. There's my Singer 222K, the Featherweight, made in Great Britain. There is my Singer 319K. That is number 2 in my list. Tied equally in third place, and I will explain all of these soon, is my 411G and my Necki Supernova Automatica Ultra. In fourth place are tied the Singer 237 and my Brother LB 4300. In fifth place is my Texo 611. And in sixth place, it isn't a sewing machine, but I wouldn't want it to feel left out, my Janome Overlocker. Okay, so going back to the beginning, let's see why I've done this. So, the Singer 222K. It's a straight stitch only machine. I highly recommend anyone who does real sewing to have a straight stitch in the house. It doesn't really matter what it is, but straight stitches sew beautifully straight. They have attachments and feet which work extremely well to do a lot of the things that are a little more difficult for a number of different reasons on other machines. That's my opinion, but I certainly have found that. So for this machine, there is a walking foot. I have a couple of them, including the Penguin. The Singer buttonholer works perfectly on it. And there are zigzag attachments, which are kind of cute. They do some over-stitching, which is useful sometimes. But generally, if I need zigzag, I would use the machine to its right. It does have drop feed, as you can see on there. The drop feed mechanism here. That's all it is. Reverse, forward, and I also have bought a handle which sits there. That's pretty much what it does. It's very light. It's got a side loading bobbin, which once you know how to put it in, is pretty easy. And that's the machine in a nutshell. Why do I like it? It's incredibly quiet. It sews beautifully. I have excellent control on it, and it's very light to carry. Okay? I can work with other people in the room and still watch television without getting shouted at. I can sew lightweight fabrics and rolled hems perfectly without a needle jam. So I'm quite pleased when I'm doing anything on cotton or any weight of cotton, lightweight fabrics, silks. This machine does fabulously. It does heavier stuff as well, but a lot of times I might upgrade to a different machine. there is so much sewing, for most people, that is straight stitch. So have one. You can choose any one. They'll all do a very good job. Obviously, if I wanted, I could have a 201, which is stunning. But considering the combination of machines I've got, having a big, heavy 201 isn't all that important to me because I have so many other lovely machines. Now, what don't I like about it? Well, it's not got a very high foot. So getting thicker fabrics under here isn't such an easy thing to do. However, there is a little cheat. If you take off the end plate here, which is really easy to do, this screw here allows you to raise the foot up equal with the needle height, so you can actually get your whole finger under there. And as long as you're still sewing high fabric, it will pull it through without any problem whatsoever. But then you need to loosen it, put it back down when you're doing the lower fabric, because the actual height that mechanism goes up and down is only that far. So therefore, if you raise it up, it won't touch the ground. But when you're doing heavy duty thick fabrics, that's what you need it for. So that is my Featherweight 222K, and I shall put it back together in a moment. Okay, my second machine, my 319K. Okay, takes flat cams here. I have created a hem stitcher foot that goes here, or a plate. So I just drilled some holes, and now I can use a hem stitcher on it. Walking foot, no problems. It takes the Featherweight penguin. It also takes a zigzag attachment. It takes all the buttonholers, whether it's a straight stitch buttonholer or a zigzag buttonholer. Ruffler attachment works on both of these machines without any problem. It has a front loading bobbin, but more about that in a second. It does have drop feed, and this machine can be treadled. So for my purposes, it's pretty cool. What do I like about it? Comes with the case and a drop-down table. So you notice both of my machines here have a drop-down table. That makes your life so much better. Obviously, if you can drop it in a sewing machine cabinet like I do, that's also very, very good. Okay, it takes, this one, you can put a 6mm double needle in it. So if you actually need, it will fit and it will work. It is a very high foot, so when I need to raise it up, it gets up there nice and high. Love that. It's quiet to use. Totally controllable needle position, which is a pretty cool function. It's not just left, medium, and right. You can actually move it anywhere in between, so you can really line up. And that's just done with that there, and it's got the control so you can lock it in place and do all sorts of things like that. Very easy to use the zigzag on it as well. It's a cool machine for that. The handle on top, I never thought I would actually find it useful, but any of these other machines, you always have to lift it under here. This one has this handle on top, and it actually makes it quite easy to move around because it's quite heavy. Well, it's not as heavy as many, but it's heavy enough because of the wood base. But it just makes it super easy to move. It has the attachment space at the right. I like that a lot. That comes in quite handy for storing some stuff there. Good strong piercing power. Really easy to get additional feet because it's low shank. It's also full rotary hook. So that means it's got a band in there which goes around, which is fine. It's in good condition, it works. Zigzag 5mm width, and it's easy to get bobbins for, 206 class bobbins. It's easy to use the cams. I mean, they just screw on and they go and they work brilliantly. It is a bit awkward to change the feed dog plate, but that's not terrible. You just have to lift it up, and so I'll show you here. This is a bit awkward, so you have to lift it up. And then when the needle's up, you remove the stitch thing, you just pop it up, and then, so that's a bit odd. But equally, changing the bobbin is a bit awkward because it's there, and it's sort of a bit weird to get at. that's the biggest downfall. In here as well, you'll see there's the drop feed mechanism. So everything's underneath on this one. You get used to it. It'd be nicer if they were a little more convenient, but that's okay. It works very well. And I love sewing on it. So I'm just going to put it back down for a second so I can show you something else. The other odd thing about this particular machine is the fact that the zigzag mechanism of this long bar here. So it's actually quite a heavy mechanism to run. So you notice it's a bit stiffer sometimes. It works exceedingly well, but you just notice it's a slight bit stiffer than some of the other mechanisms with a rotating mechanism inside. But that's the downside. The upside is you have all these tabs here, so it's really, really easy. You just flip it up, you've got zigzag. Flip it up, you've got multi-point zigzag. You've got your ball stitch. It's just super easy to use. So if you're flipping back and forth between zigzag and not zigzag, this is just the easiest machine. You just flip it up, flip it down. Doesn't matter, it just works. It's super easy. I know that seems silly because on these ones you just do kind of the same. You turn it on and off, it's more awkward there. On this one, you just put it over to the left, but this one is literally up and down, on and off. It's a light switch, it's good. Bobbin's easy. Also, I put a handle on this, so I just love sewing on it. It's a beautiful machine. Now I'm spoiled because I only own good machines, so this is all relatively speaking. There are other good machines as well out there. You might have a Pfaff. They're stunning machines. You might have a Husqvarna Viking. They're stunning machines. Elna, take your pick. All of them at some point have made breathtaking machines. These are the ones I managed to get after years and years and years. And I treasure them. I keep them running and I use them. So, now we're on to place number 3. So I'm going to start with the Supernova, which you've seen in some of my latest videos. You'll notice it also comes with a case. It comes with the detachable table. It's a brilliantly quiet, beautiful machine. Very, very high lift on, very high lift on the needle space or on the foot presser. So it goes up and down a long way. So it's good, just like that one, really high. Okay. So this one is a zigzag and straight stitch, 5mm width. Good stitch length on it, goes up to the metric 4, so that's good. Most of these machines do go up to 4. In fact, all of them do, except the Featherweight has a shorter, it's stuck at 6. So these ones go down to 4, which is a pretty good length. I have a couple of machines which go beyond that, but generally that's a good long one. And turn that back to 4. Alright, so 2.5 is kind of your normal. So, what else do we like about it? It is necky double needle capable, which is a bit odd because we're used to normally side by side, but the necky is in this direction, so it gives a different effect. I'm not sure it's so useful when you want elastic stitching, so I've kind of said, yes, wonderful, but not so great for if you're sewing double needle with elastic. So I'm happy to be proven wrong, but that's my understanding of it. It uses constructible cams, which you shove in the top. So there's loads and loads and loads and loads of patterns you can do. Absolutely brilliant. I've got a couple walking feet for it. It takes a ruffling attachment. It's a side-loading bobbin, which is really easy to get at. Just turn to the left, you know where it is. It's easy because of this construction to get at, so it's not a problem whatsoever. Takes class 15 bobbins. That is lovely because they're really high capacity and really easy to get. Although, something I found out, not all class 15 bobbins are equal, so you have to make sure you use certain ones that fit better. The necky ones fit absolutely the best. They're thin, they're aluminium, and they work really well. Not all of my class 15 bobbins will wind on the bobbin winder, which is a bit of a pain. However, c'est la vie. It does not have a straight stitch plate, this machine. The other Supernovas do. And I find, though it turns really easily, It's actually a bit stiff to start for the motor, so I'm not sure whether that's just a motor thing. So what I found is if you're doing a lot of starting and stopping, use the high speed on this machine. If you're not, you can actually turn the low speed on. But it works brilliantly. It's really quiet, very nice to use. Okay. And I rate that equally with this one, which is bizarre because I wouldn't have thought so. Okay, so here we have this one. So this is my Singer 411G. It's a zigzag and straight stitch. Oh, I forgot to say something. That's a high shank machine. This is now a slant shank machine. So 5mm zigzag width, 4mm stitch length, that's fine. Double needle capacity, and what's cool about this machine is you can actually just shove 2 needles up in there, or you can buy a special double needle as normal. Full rotary hook. This one's oscillating, this one's full rotary, that one's full rotary. So that tends to make them run smoother. But obviously everyone knows the neckies are amazing. This one's full rotary, but top drop-in bobbin. So that makes it slightly different. This one also does chain stitching, which is really cool. All the attachments, it's got walking foot, buttonholer, ruffler. Now what I do like about this one, which seems like old-fashioned, but it's got a straight stitch plate. So I do tend to use a straight stitch plate a lot for my sewing. So you can see it's up there. It is a bit, it works, but it's weird because it lifts. So, you know, that's slightly a different way of working. But what it means is if you need to disengage the feet, you actually have to raise the plate here, which then means you lose some space under the foot, which is not very handy when you're trying to get a hoop in there. So I've always disliked that about these machines, that raises up when to disengage the feet rather than dropping them. So that's okay, it works, it's fine, it works extremely well. But it's a bit of pain. It does take a 6mm double needle attachment, class 66 drop-in, so slightly less capacity. Does change stitch, very powerful, very smooth action. So that's one thing I do love about these, the 400 class machines. The action is beautiful. You can actually turn it with your finger without any problem. It's light. Like most, the vintage machines, you can do that. That's just finger tension. So you can actually, beautifully made. And I like that. What I don't like about this machine, let's put this down, is that foot raiser is a bit odd. Oddly enough, remembering these settings is a bit of a pain. And even though in here you've got the full grid, not all of these machines do. I had to hunt to find one with that shortcut in it. It's still a bit strange to do it, but it works. And you can put the cams in there as well. But I find that a little bit odd, but that's neither here nor there, it works. So it's a bit unusual for some constructions. My biggest downfall of this one is, which is taken away when you treadle it. So you can see I've managed to create that trough there for a treadle cable, or treadle band. It's perfectly silent when you treadle it. So this machine I prefer treadling than not treadling, just because it's so beautifully made. But when you take away the whine of the motor, that's just my preference. The motor's neat, and if you like the power and whining of it, it's fab. But for me, because I want to sew silently, I prefer it without. So these machines, these 3 machines, up to the necky, are silent operating, or pretty much just very, very quiet. This one's whinier, but it sews very well, very powerful, very fast, and it's a delight to sew on. All my machines are. Now we're getting into the why do you have these question. Okay, so let's start with the brother. The brother, as you can see, I bought an additional table because it doesn't come standard with one. That's a big downfall for these. So there is a part that sits there, but it makes it kind of a narrow table to work on. So buying this makes it good. Okay, so it's a digital sewing and embroidery machine. It's low shank, 7mm foot, so that's a much wider foot to sew on. It's double needle capable. It's a full rotary hook with a drop-in bobbin in the top. It's 7mm stitch width, very long length. I can't remember what it goes up to. It might be 0.9 or 9mm or something. I think it does go up to 9mm, this machine, which is the longest I've got. And you can put a walking foot, a buttonhole or foot, though I haven't really figured out how you're supposed to use a buttonhole attachment, which I prefer. It does take a ruffler attachment, and it's got a digital foot, so that's quite neat. It also allows you to adjust the needle anywhere, left or right, any position, like that one. That's the only other machine I have which allows that flexibility and control of the needle, so I give it points for that. It sews very well, lots of different types of stitcher. I do like the needle or the thread cutter. It's got a metal frame in there, so it's a very well built machine, runs very well. Okay. What I don't like about it is it's quite a small screen. It's just single color as well, so it's a bit odd. I don't really get excited about the constant beeping every time you press a button. It's noisy, a bit noisy when in slow mode, you know, but not bad. It's just you notice it. And the light under there is not quite as bright as I would have liked. It's a single LED and it's not quite bright. It doesn't have a straight stitch plate, which I don't like on a machine, because it just, when you're sewing fine fabrics, it all gets jammed down the hole and it's a pain in the bum. However, they all say, oh, just buy tissue paper. Well, I don't need to if I have a straight stitch plate. So, yeah, okay, that's fine. You can buy it. I don't need it because I've got 3 machines which do straight stitch. Okay? So I like it. It's a good machine. It's very pleasant to sew on. It's not my favorite. That's just the way of it. Someone might object to that because recently I was watching the Great British Sewing Bee, and they put them all on featherweights and they could barely use them, and they thought they were the most awful things on earth. They were much happier on the digital sewing machine. It's personal taste. That's what it is. And my personal taste is I like the vintage ones because they're smoother to sew on. I have had thread jams on that machine, which I didn't think I would get on the digital. This necky here is the one I've had the fewest thread jams on. Very good. But it's, you know, it sews fine. You could sew hours on that, I'm sure, fine, and be very happy. I love the purr of the vintage machines. I just think it's a nicer experience. It's like driving a Rolls Royce, you know, really beautiful. Now, you'd think, why on earth does he have a 237? Well, there are a couple of things about this 237 which are kind of fascinating. Okay, it's one of the few Singers which isn't a 1591 that is a class 15 bobbin. Okay, it's side loading. It's oscillating hook. It's Italian made. So what you can see there is it's the Sinango company in Italy. And why do I have this? Well, first of all, it is the height and the dimensions of the older sewing machine. So it will take a standard crank wheel, which makes it a lot easier to treadle. It will also take a hand crank on it. It's surprisingly really quiet. You know, it's a quiet machine. And it sews extremely well. Left center needle, right needle, zigzag, and up to 6. So it's slightly different, but this one's kind of my treadle favorite. It's got some good things about it. So it's much shorter, bizarre actually. So if you look, that foot is really not very high at all. I don't know why they didn't make it higher, but it works, but it's just much lower. The purpose for this was it's a big bobbin, class 15 I wanted, and it treadles, and it's just it actually runs very beautiful. What I don't like about it, yeah, that low pressure foot. It doesn't have a straight stitch plate that fits it. The 239 and the 237M, the actual plate doesn't fit it, so it's stuck with the zigzag foot, so therefore it fails on the fine fabric sewing without paper. So that's disappointing. And it has some plastic bits on it, just the top and the front, but when I got this machine they were cracked, so I've already replaced them once, but I take care of them now. That's just odd, but it does lighten it because it's a steel machine. It's blinking heavy. Whereas the other ones I've got, this is aluminium, that's aluminium. Those four are actually all aluminium, the first four. So that one's good. So this one, it's nice to sew on. It's not the most quality Singer ever made, but the inner workings down here, like the outer bits aren't great, but the actual inside of the machine is proper Singer class 15, really beautifully made. So it works well. And what's interesting, I think, about it as well is the zigzag mechanism is exactly the same zigzag mechanism as that. So it's a really good zigzag mechanism. So I like it. It's nice to sew on. Okay, now we're down to the odd sods ones. So this Texo, this is an industrial sewing machine. It's a walking foot industrial sewing machine. It is super heavy and it sews really well. Okay, it's class 15 again, side loading bobbin, so it's actually exactly the same guts as these two are the same, pretty much underneath. They work, you can even see, same kind of mechanism. Left, medium, right, zigzag. They're kind of the same machine. This Texo is heavier duty, but they're essentially kind of the same machine. Now, what do I like about it? So, it's zigzag and straight, 5mm width. It's not double needle capable, neither is that one because of the side loading bobbin. This Texo takes industrial sewing needles. It's a walking foot machine, and it's an oscillating hook, same as this one, so it's oscillating rather than full rotary. Okay. What I like, it's extremely powerful, it's very easy to control, it's really great for thick and tough fabrics. Yeah, you can probably use it for lighter, but I find it too noisy for that, so when I want to work on lighter fabric, then I'll use a different machine. It works really, really, really well for what it was designed for and what I upgraded it for. So it's nice, but it's noisy. Okay, and last but not least, my Janome 634D. This is my old beastie. So for people who say the plastic machines don't last, well, depends on how long. Yeah, they're not going to last 100 years, but this one's over 20 years old. You'll notice I've got a piece of tape on the front there. That's because what breaks? It's the plastic. However, I've managed to keep this going. It does 3 and 4 thread, it does a rolled hem, and it has stitch length there, so it goes for everything. It does rolled hem, but it also has differential feeds, so you can do gathering and ruffling. It's easy to get the knives for. It does 3 and 4, so double needle if you want. It works really well. Totally digital foot, so it's really controllable. Adjustable cutting width, adjustable feed. It's fast, it's relatively quiet, it's reliable, it's got a good metal frame inside. And the variable feed, rolled hem, and gathering attachments work really well. It's fine. The only downside is it's got quite a few plastic components on it, on the outside. Everything on the inside is metal, but of course things wear out. So this has become loose because it's attached to the plastic and not the metal. However, it doesn't really affect the use. You just have to be careful when you pull it up to make sure it's sitting right. Aside from that, considering it's 20 years old, it's working just fine. So I don't use it all that often, but I keep it lubricated and it's good. So there's my collection. I'm very spoiled because to think of the cost when these machines were out, there's no way you could afford that many. Even nowadays, it's taken me years to collect these machines. And the only one I'm inclined to upgrade, really, I must admit, the one thing that I liked my 403. I thought it was a beautiful machine. Didn't have all the creature features, but it's nice. So either 401 or the 401G or 411G I've got here, but it does chain stitching. But the 403 I thought was a beautifully made machine. Really liked it. That's probably the only one that I would be inclined to upgrade. I'm still trying to find a replacement for it which has needle position, because a lot of these type of machines which you can treadle don't have adjustable needle position, even if they zigzag. So yeah, I could replace with a 1591 or a 66 or a 201 or something, which would be fabulous. They're heavy, but then I lose a zigzag. So decide. Either one will do the job. Considering this is generally for treadling, although I would use a zigzag on it, I could live without and use another machine for the zigzag and treadle on it. But I see no reason, because it's beautifully made. You know, the insides are really, really good. It's just not the most prettiest machine. So, considering what I paid for it and what it keeps to run, I'm happy. So you'll see me using all of these machines over time. I can show you a couple of things here. Ignore the mess in this closet, but I thought you'd be interested to see. Here, if you look, that's one of my shirts, that's one of my shirts, that's one of my shirts. There's lots. That's one of my shirts. There are just tons of my shirts, and something I'm very proud of, which was a really exciting combination. I've even made cravats. I've done kind of everything over the years. This one you might find really interesting. So I made these pair of jeans. Turn on the light if I can. Made these pair of jeans, and I did the digital foot. I designed this and actually did that on the Brother machine. So it's pretty cool. But these jeans I made, so this is some of the clothes I make. So just to pass the time, and I really enjoy it. Plus these fit me better, because I'm not a small build by any stretch. But anyway, so I just thought you'd find that interesting. What you can see here is I emptied my sewing machines out of their cases. I used to have, for my 403, a plastic case, and it broke, which is sad because they're very expensive. But I've just put, where they aren't in rows, like those are the 3 cases I have, where they aren't in cases, I've just bought cloth ones, and they work perfectly well. There's also these kind of replacement plastic cases, which actually, this is the one for my industrial, but it fits all of the Singer builds. It comes with that little table. It's plastic, but it works. So I like the cloth ones. That's one for my Janome overlocker. So there's cases for everything. And you know what? They work really well. So anyway, there's my wonderful sewing machine collection. Some people have even more exciting sewing collections, but this is what I've managed to get after years. And I get shouted at for having so many, but they all do different things. So you've got to enjoy the treasures that we have. So there's my favorite. Anyway, bye for now.